It is, I suppose, very easy to just admit that I'm a laughingstock when it comes to college. Being deaf and excluded and treated the horrible way I was treated by a circus in the city of Pittsburgh, led by Evan Nauer and Matt Marcus of a band called The Shunts and King Crimson, particularly Adrian Ballou and Tony Levin. Sadist, creepy people. It's easy to dismiss me as a laughingstock. Personally, I think it's important for honors department persons at the community college to attempt to comprehend exactly how I was dismembered from the body politic of the school, which I was a natural citizen entitled to free tuition that was denied me, and how it emerged into this freak show of free-for-all cannibal claims on the smallest tokens of my identity by organized criminals in key administration lobbies. To explain this, I want to use an example that's current, which is Gaza. True, I was not particularly welcome at the Gaza protests. The Jeffin Corporation and Carnegie Mellon had already networked people with their disturbing and morally disturbed so-called narrative, their storyline. And the Gazans had participated in the blackout on the horrible crime of Gail Burston. Let me go into what she did a minute. Gail Burston wrote a script as a Zionist occupation terrorist who organized brutal abduction, Manson ordeals, and torture of me for the organized crime team of Hitler Reagan. And she was endorsed by the cowardly principals who put her into place to begin with, particularly Paul McCartney, who should be stripped of his sir. He is a disgraceful sadist and pervert. Absolutely disgraceful. I've never been able to imagine somebody that horrifyingly evil and cruel, stupid, and base. The terrorism also came from the NAACP, who loved the idea of using a white boy as an object in pornographic genocide and then getting him crucified by the despicable degradation in the soul of Yoko Ono and David Bowie. All of these loutish, low, persecuting, debased cowards dare to blame me for something that never even happened from the psyche of Hollywood terrorism. All of them did. But a person is to be forgiven if seeing these photons, these photon torpedoes, coming out of the collective brainwave seance of the bumblebee bugs in Western media fetish, the consumers sitting behind their computers, trying not to notice that their money was being co-opted and hot-wired into a Nosferatu extermination barrage to titillate the moral excitements of Jewish deranged individuals, Jewish monsters who've been indoctrinated that it's their due to look at me and say, "Where were you?" Well, I'll tell you where I was. I believed this is really very important. All the other stuff was just context. This is the point, and this is, I think, very important to the honors department. Seeing me lose my temper about that soulless murderer, Peter Gabriel, is not that important. Where I was, I recognized very, very clearly back in the 80s and even maybe even earlier, but it was certainly in the early 80s. I recognized very, very clearly that there was an elite, meaning honors department, scholarly recognition. There was an elite glimmer of recognition among those who recognized and affirmed and put forward their advocacy for the humanity of the Palestinian condition. I recognize that as one of the highest aspects of calling in academics. It's important to understand that because I was deaf and you made me a laughingstock, I was shut out. I was in no position whatsoever to do anything but quietly say, yes, I believe that the Palestinians are being misserved. Another thing that's very important, in my opinion, to understand that because I associated the Palestinian human condition and recognition thereof as an elite recognition, I had contacted people from Ivy League schools and I knew about the Israelis. Because I recognized it and considered it and conceived it in an elite, almost a status, I also believed that they were getting help behind the scenes. That people in power in whom we put our trust were making sure of their safety. Were making sure that progress was being made. It was very difficult to follow, in part because of the network suicide that went on after the Iraq invasion. The networks in the West committed suicide. They went blank. They dropped topical information. Even trying to follow it on what was available in informed dissent, like Chomsky and his droogs, was very difficult to find. I found some pamphlets in left bank bookstores around Seattle, and I stared into space in absolute disbelief that the media had committed suicide and wasn't reporting anything. When I crawled from being tortured, I now have Parkinson's, by a Black Panther operation in Seattle that is absolutely despicable. It's a puppet show from Clint Eastwood. I mean, they dangle from puppet strings from the most disturbing white psychotics in Hollywood. And they take a liberal white, damaged, deaf, poverty-stricken dishwasher trying to learn things behind the scenes by studying as an opponent of their favor. And they not only participated in this horrifying suicide of our media, but they banned me from even trying to go to school for over 10 years. So I stared into space. I did some unusual research. And one of the most troubling things about this is I was trying to help them. I wrote a piece that's very revealing called Barista Gate. I went to the baristas in the Central District. Said, did you know that there was a script found supposedly about the murder of John Lennon, which glaringly identifies Zionists as being behind the AIDS attack? They said, no, never heard anything about it. These terrible, sadistic, stupid people put a brand of claim on the storyline for the perpetrators. And they will go to these same baristas and say, we did it for you. And they'll say, how did you do it for me? We didn't let the white sack tell you nothing. And that makes sense to their repertoire. And somehow these people are the real elite. And they must have recognized that there was something of a calling in wanting to help articulate the justice that is due the Palestinians. Because they crushed it. With pure, seething, violent, venomous hatred from the monolith University of Washington and Carnegie Mellon University. And I stared into space. And when I finally got a college to accept me, from which I graduated in due course in the honors department at the top of my class, which I feel after I actually was allowed to learn sign language with pretty, was a fair expectation after I shook off some of the trauma of the neurological implant that they put in there and dared to publicly ridicule me as a Palestinian in the Pit News. I went to the honors department and said, would you like me to do an honors contract on the Syrian refugee crisis? I'll provide the link in the box of this video talk video if you want to hear it. My point is, I lost my temper because I've just got some rest and my emotions are healthy about those marauding psychopaths in Genesis. And he's dead, Jim. But my point is that the recognition that it was an elite condition to care about the Palestinians in academics had led me to misappraise. I mean, I have a book, Peace Not Apartheid, by Jimmy Carter. You would think that if we had a leader who was in any way stable psychiatrically, he would build on his predecessors in the Democratic Party. JFK warned about Israel as a foreign power who could turn on us. Biden ignored Jimmy Carter's hard work establishing the need for America to intervene morally and protect the Palestinians. And that's what brought us to where we are. I was not ignoring the situation. I was pushed out by other matters seemingly, originating with the Zionist crime lobby who has puppet strings over the hard up in the labor movement, who are only too happy to go along with their cult of sinister crime